Hi, everyone. This is David Gomez. I'm bringing an interview for the 31 by 31 initiative by the Latino Business Speaker Bureau for the Hispanic Heritage Month. Today, I have the honor of introducing Andre Arbelaez. He is the president and CEO of HC3. Andre, it's an honor to have you with us today.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, David.
Thank you. So, if you wouldn't mind, could you please share with our audience a little bit of your background?
Sure. I am 100% Colombian-blooded, proud parents of two wonderful people, my father and my mother, that immigrated from Colombia in 1967 to Detroit, Michigan, and came here to the United States for everything that all of us come here for, which is the American dream, the land of opportunity, the opportunity to take our Hispanic values and reflect them in what is one of America's greatest assets, being this incredible melting pot of pursuing, life, liberty, and happiness.
Right.
And since then, oh yeah, and let me just add, since then, I have followed in my parents' footsteps. My father was a computer programmer, and my mother is an entrepreneur who has her own language and translation company, which to this day is thriving very strongly in the midst of this pandemic. So I'm very proud of my mother for really being a strong advocate and being proud as a Latina with a mindset of shameless marketing, to get across, in a very competitive world.
So that's amazing. So I can see where you would, be poised to succeed, with the values that your parents instill in you.
Very much so, and and that's our Hispanic values. Mm-hmm. And I always go to my heart when I talk about them, because it's who we are. We're family orientated, Judeo-Christian valued, work hard, extremely loyal, and we believe in the American dream, and we love being in America. And it is something that makes our community very impressive to corporate America. Mm-hmm. And it's making sure that corporate America recognizes that, and then therefore they can come at our community in a positive way to say, this is what the candidates for employees that we want to go to.
Yeah, and what you're saying right there is very important to the next point that I'm making. So you've been in the technology industry since the 90s.
Correct.
What has been the trend that you've seen of Latinos being involved in technology?
We have seen definitely a growth in the Hispanic community in key positions. I like to say at one time when I was president of HiTech, we had a very much stronghold in tech. At one point, we had the CIO of this little social media company called Facebook, Timothy Campos, who's Dominicano. We had the CIO of Hewlett Packard, who was Puerto Rican or Boricua. We had the CIO of Cisco, Guillermo Diaz, who is Mexicano. We had the CIO of San Francisco, Miguel Gamino, who's another country which is called Tejano. And we had executives at Coca-Cola, at DHL, at Mondelez International, at Procter & Gamble. All across the board, there were CIOs that were Latino and really came together with the model that I pushed at HiTech, which was the push-up, pull-up mentality, where they recognize that they have been at a level where they need help getting even to the next level. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, recognizing that they have to reach down and pull up the next generation of young rising stars. And we created at HiTech something called the Emerging Executive Program, where to this day, it's not only very strong, it keeps growing. On average, it has about 50 rising stars matched with mentors, former CIOs, current CIOs, or industry executives, mentoring and working together with these rising stars to build that pipeline even further so corporate America can reach out. And the success of high tech today was really, it's really on that foundation that was building pipeline for employers to promote within or allow them to look inside this pool and generate new opportunities in corporate America.
And speaking of new opportunities, do you see any new areas where Latinos can still be, innovative in the technology industry?
Oh, as technology becomes innovative itself, Hispanics are very much a key part of that process. Technology isn't necessarily focused on an ethnic background. It's much more focused on, does it supply value to the end user? And as technology improves, Hispanics are there. I think one of the greatest examples right now is going back to the aforementioned Guillermo Diaz, was a CIO of Cisco. He's now the CEO of a tech startup that's growing fast in Silicon Valley called CloudSpot, which uses situational awareness technology, which is still very new, which tracks people, but based upon their, having their phone,
right?
When they walk into locations, and organizations and companies can see movement to create a better value for that experience, let alone in these days of COVID, track movements and use cameras that to identify if they're wearing face masks, do they have temperature, a lot of new technology that's out there that it's advancing. And you find these incredible people at companies like Amazon, at Google, at Facebook, Twitter, all these leading companies that have a voice, you'll find Hispanics there.
That's fascinating. And I mean, I can see use for that technology, not just for COVID, but, any other type of pandemic, in the future, have that preparedness. And, I don't know if that might be a use for it, but like missing persons and, helping
Yes.
police.
Yeah. I mean, we become dangerously close to Big Brother watching, but it's going to happen.
Right.
We would be lying to ourselves if we didn't realize that this technology exists, where more monitoring is going to happen, and COVID is giving that excuse, in a very legitimate way, but it becomes that slippery slope. But companies need that to provide, and I believe they're seriously going after this from a business value perspective. Right. If they're tracking their clients inside their facilities to say, oh, they're spending more time here, I should focus on that. Or I can direct market to them based upon their location. I can put specific advertisement to television screens or displays that they're walking across based upon what I know about them.
Right.
So I think the business value is driving a lot of opportunity from that perspective. And it's happening globally, just not in the United States.
Yeah. Well, now we were talking about the impacts that Latinos had in the industry. You have experience in boards, and so that's a very very influential position. And so, could you share what role does diversity bring to the board of an organization?
So I sit on several nonprofit and for-profit boards, and each one is a little bit different. But perspective is probably the common thread in all of them. Okay. Coming from a Hispanic perspective, we look at things differently, or we know of things to be different. That's not always the way where most board members come from. in that perspective. A recent example is I was living in Dallas for the past year, and had the great fortune to be asked to sit on the board of the Miss America organization. And one first says, wow, this is a dream, but you realize you're really working with serious people. You're working with billionaires. You're working with an incredible group of very intelligent people that have led an organization for the past 100 years. And what you realize, and I was the only person of diversity that came into it, and these kinds of pageant organizations are dying on the vine because lack of corporate sponsorship, high costs, and the Me Too movement was all affected that. And they're seriously considering shutting things down. My diverse point of view, particularly being Latino, was, whoa, pageants are like the Super Bowl in Latin America.
Yeah.
And there are 60 plus million Latinos in the United States that you need to change your targeting to, because we love that. We have tremendous pride in watching Miss Universe contests where, I always take a great pride in watching it every time to say, at least in the top 10, 5 of them come from Latin America. So I have a tremendous pride in it. So telling them about this background, this perspective, and then adding the fact that we have a $1.7 trillion economic power here in the United States really opened up their eyes in a different way that they would have not had visibility to if I were not from a Hispanic background. Right. So diversity pays off in a great way, but you have to be very careful how you use it, because the last thing you want to do is make the audience uncomfortable if you're in their face. You have to be interwoven with the common goal of the organization.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's also necessary for them to, own the part, us Latinos own the part that we're contributing. And I think that what you're saying there is very important. We have a perspective, and we have knowledge, we know our people, and we know the influence that we have.
And we need to be able to be proud to use it, because particularly in this time of social injustice that is being played out in major urban cities, Hispanics have the opportunity to shine, because we are not the conflicting message. We love our country. We love law and order. You'll never see a Latino burn an American flag.
Right.
I say that proudly. And it's these things really make decision makers very comfortable when we come to tell the message. And we have to be very, careful how we do it, because we have, as the former Vice President Joe Biden was talking the other day about, Hispanics are not monolithic. Right. We're diverse. I like to say we have 29 different cultures in the Hispanic community in the United States. And within that, we have different hierarchies. And Hispanics don't think all alike, and when we try to come together, very important things like organizations like the Hispanic Star, right? It's very important that we do that, and we get together at the United Nations and talk. And I always like to tell Claudia Romo Elderman, who is the leader behind that, is thank God the World Cup hasn't happened, because that's when we all break apart.
Right.
We all cheer for our country. But it is so important for us to work together, even when we have different points of view or different political ideologies, to recognize that our community brings something special. And we are the #1 minority. We have the #1 purchasing power. And if we work a little better together, we can leverage that more politically.
So it's more of a unity of purpose.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. For purpose and opportunity. Right. Where Hispanics or /Latinos get viewed in a way that are like, wow, great people to hire. At the executive levels, not just in the the service levels, but up in, in the upper range. And we have seen that in corporate America. We have not a lot, but we have around 12 or 13 corporate CEOs in the Fortune 500 that are Latino. And that's much more than any other community.
Yeah.
So that is, that's good, but it's not good enough.
Yeah.
So we have to keep pressing, keep delivering the message that these are great executives who do things the right way.
And I'm looking at your experience and your track record, and I see that. I mean, you epitomize, what successful and the good things that Latinos can bring to the table. So, and with that thought, could you share how you have overcome some challenges to succeed as a person, but also using your heritage?
I'm a big believer in the concept of relationships and making sure you walk those relationships across all aisles. And I think that's been the biggest success, because if you come into it with integrity and character, anything can be accomplished. I can reach and talk to corporate CEOs I may have talked to once, and they respond, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, or whatever, because they know you're coming into it. When they do a quick little background check on you, right. They go, okay, legitimate, not trying to get me, that kind of thing. It's about, being selfless in the process. And those relationships across the board, whether it's with the CEO of AT&T Consumer Business, Thaddeus Arroyo, who runs a $120 billion business unit, or Nina Vaca, who is the CEO of the Pinnacle Group, who runs, a $1 billion operation out of Dallas, Texas, or reaching the powerful friends like Lily Gil Valletta, who does an incredible job pushing our country and giving us data that's not biased, just data, right, and helping shape it so we understand what our positioning is or what the sentiment is specifically on different issues, around our country. And people like in Claudia, and I could just go on, and Guillermo Diaz, great leaders, or there's so many. I get lost with so many good ones.
Right.
But it is those kinds of people that you build these relationships with, and you help each other out. Whether you appear at their events, here we are, with Latino, Business Speakers Bureau, and you got Raymond Arroyo, really behind it, and Betty behind it and everything. And, it is all these kinds of relationships that you leverage and you see each other. And that's why this pandemic has been real hard, because we're huggers. We want to go hug somebody and thank them. And it's un abrazo fuerte, right, with our people. And that's who we are. And when mainstream America sees that, they see goodness.
Yeah.
They see happiness. They see joy. And that's why I always talk about our music. Our music is really about two things: love and food.
That's right.
You put on a salsa sopa de caracol, everybody goes nuts.
Right.
It's when you think about it, you try to explain that to a traditional American, they're like, what? Yeah, shrimp soup. But it's the joy that we have in life. And when we translate that personal joy, and they see that on social media and experience that in person, they say, these are the kinds of people that we want to be around with. Right.
And that is, so we have a positive influence in the culture. And and going in that same thought, I think you're starting to hit on some of those things. So how do you keep your Hispanic heritage alive?
Oh, boy. Well, one, my mother never lets me forget that I have to speak to her in Spanish every single day. So, it's the parenting up, and it's also the parenting down that one must keep to your children and so forth, and keep that culture ingrained. I think it's also important to maintain that Hispanic culture within your friends network. And I think that is something that it is, helps realize that. I just had a family come over and visit and stay at my house that they're friends and they're Guatemalan background, and you keep that culture, deep. Or it's just, my friends network, the people that I talk to the most are fellow Latinos that are driven like me and are pushing themselves to go in the right direction. Now, I always say, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And I'm very blessed to have a good group of Hispanic leaders as good friends that I'm in touch with from all over the country, let alone around the world.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're asking our members, and especially because what you're doing it's already amazing, but we're also trying to give people a preview of what you're working on. So is there anything that you can share with us that is a new project or something that's on the horizon?
Yes. So the relaunch of the Hispanic C-Suite Corporate Council will be happening, and we're trying to work if it'll be later this fall or early next year. Obviously, the COVID situation has delayed it because we want to do it in person. Right. That's the ideal situation. If not, we'll have to do a virtual one. But it is really the bringing together of the top Hispanics in corporate America, and from an excellence in leadership perspective, not a diversity perspective. That's the given. Right. We want to make sure that we really help drive and support each other in the process. So I'm taking that push-up, pull-up mentality that I leveraged at High Tech and bringing it into the HC3. And I've already talked to corporate CEOs, and they're very much engaged. I already have the sponsors. So we're very excited about that. And we hope to launch that soon. We just don't have a date yet because we want to be sensitive to the situation. So we could be launching it in Texas. We did the first official launch in Washington, D.C. several years ago. But the momentum is there, and expect a lot of news coming out of HC3. And our website is hc3global.com. Hopefully we can put that in the link.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that'll be something that we're very excited about because it's connected with the Hispanic Star and the movement with the Claudia has done, right. With the We Are All Human Foundation. And we're also connected with LCDA, the Latino Corporate Directors Association, because that's the path we're taking our top executives to, board level.
Right. And it's very interesting too, because as you were sharing about your heritage, that is one of the concepts that you share. You have your culture that you're passed on by your parents, and you also pass it on to your kids.
Yes.
But that's the same approach that you guys are taking, to lift other Latinos.
Yeah, I personally mentor about 5 to 6 Latinos at a time. Mm-hmm. And it's just random. They call, we talk about business, we talk about, what's going on in their lives personally, how they're dealing with this pandemic, and helping connect. That's the beautiful thing about being a connector, right. Is that you can really help people, because that's the best feeling in the world, is when you can help people make a difference or get into a new point in their lives with a new career. There is, it's one of the best joys, and it's truly my passion. And us Latinos, we're very passionate people.
Right. So thank you so much, Andre. This has been a great interview. I know that you have way more to share, and I could just keep asking you questions because you're hitting a lot of points that are of interest for me personally. From the Latino Business Speaker Bureau, we really thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Muchísimas gracias. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Gracias.